from cover to cover orally, and it is done routinely in some places, but this is not one of them. Instead, we'll be excerpting some passages, and I'll be sort of advancing the narrative. And one thing that I just wanted to say, just in terms of troubled times in which we find ourselves, Joyce found himself in troubled times too. 17 million fatalities during the First World War while this book was being composed, and yet it looks back to a time before that conflict began, a kind of idealized recollection of Dublin in 1904, and becomes his literary L'Chaim, his celebration to life. And so that's what we have in store for us. 18 episodes, approximately 21 readers, and occasionally I'll fill in a gap in the narrative. And in the meantime, in between time, I will just please have you welcome to the stage the sponsor from Pudd'nhead Press, Bloomsday in Chicago. Please welcome Mr. David Getchett.
12 years we've been doing this? Yes, we've been doing this for 12 years. I want to thank everybody for coming. Pudd'nhead Press holds a couple literary events a year. And we have an open mic that we do at a place called the Gallery Cabaret. But if you want to know about it, ask me about it.
We can't sit.
Thanks.
Why don't we have a seat?
That would be nice.
We're going to do it. It's not a...
Stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of lather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him by the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, "In troibo ad altere Dei," halted, peered down the dark, winding stairs, and called up hoarsely, "Come up, Kinch! Come up, you fearful Jesuits!" Solemnly, he came forward and mounted the round gun rest. He faced about and blessed gravely thrice the tower, the surrounding countryside, and the awaking mountains. Then, catching sight of Stephen Dedalus, he bent towards him and made rapid crosses in the air, gurgling in his throat and shaking his head. Stephen Dedalus, displeased and sleepy, leaned his arms on the top of the staircase and looked coldly at the shaking, gurgly face that blessed him. Buck Mulligan peeped an instant under the mirror and then covered the bowl smartly. "Back to barracks," he said sternly. He added in a preacher's tone, "For this, oh dearly beloved, is a genuine Christine, body and soul and blood and owns. Slow music, please. Shut your eyes, gents. Silence all." He peered sideways up, and a pleasant smile broke quietly over his lips. "The mockery of it," he said gaily. "Your absurd name, an ancient Greek. My name is absurd too, Malachi Mulligan. 2 dactyls, but it has a Hellenic ring, hasn't it? Tripping and sunny like the Buck himself. We must go to Athens. Will you come if I can get the aunt to fork out 20 quid? He laid the brush aside and, laughing with delight, cried, "Will he come, the Jesuits?" He came over to the gun rest, and thrusting a hand into Stephen's upper pocket, he said, "Lend us a loan of your nose rag to wipe my razor." Stephen suffered him to pull out and hold up on show by his corner a dirty, crumpled handkerchief. Buck Mulligan wiped the razor blade neatly. Then, facing over the handkerchief, he said, "The Barnes nose rag! A new color for the Irish poets! Snot green! You can almost taste it, can't you?" He mounted the parapet again, and gazing out over Dublin Bay, he said, "God," he said quietly, "isn't the sea what Elegy called it? A great, sweet mother. The snap-gritting sea! The scrotum-tightening sea! The aunt thinks you killed your mother, he said. That's why she won't let me have anything to do with you. Someone killed her, Stephen said gloomily. You could have knelt down, damn it, Kinch, when your dying mother asked you, Buck Mulligan said. To think of your mother begging you with her last breath to kneel down and pray for her, and you refused. There is something sinister in you. He broke off and shaved evenly and with care, in silence, seriously. Stephen, an elbow resting on the jagged granite, leaned his palm against his brow and gazed at the fraying edge of his shiny black coat sleeve. Pain that was not yet the pain of love fretted his heart. Silently, in a dream, she had come to him after her death, her wasted body within its loose brown grave clothes, giving off an odor of wax and rosewood, her breath that had bent upon him, mute, reproachful, a faint odor of wetted ashes. Across the threadbare cuff, he saw the sea hailed as the great sweet mother by the well-fed voice beside him. The ring of bay and skyline held a dull green mass of liquid. A bowl of white china had stood beside her deathbed, holding the green sluggish bile which he had torn up from her rotting liver by fits of loud, groaning vomiting. Buck Mulligan again wiped his razor blade. Ah, poor dog body, he said in a kind voice. I must give you a shorts and a few nose wraps. How are the second-hand breeches? They fit well enough, Stephen answered. Buck Mulligan attacked the hollow beneath his underlip. The mockery of it, he said contentedly. Second leg they should be. I have a lovely pair with a hair stripe gray. You're like spiffing in them. Thanks, Stephen said. I can't wear them if they are gray. He can't wear them, Buck Mulligan told his face in the mirror. Etiquette is etiquette. He kills his mother, but he can't wear gray trousers. Look at yourself, you dreadful bard. Stephen bent forward and peered at the mirror held out to him, cleft by a crooked crack, hair on end. I pinched it out of the skiddies room, Buck Mulligan said. It is a symbol of Irish art, the cracked looking glass of a servant, Stephen said with bitterness. Buck Mulligan suddenly linked his arm in Stephen's and walked with him round the tower, his razor and mirror clacking in the pocket where he had thrust them. It's not fair to tease you like that, Kinch, is it? He said kindly, cracked looking glass of a servant. Do you remember the first day I went to your house after my mother's death? Buck Mulligan frowned quickly and said, Why? What happened in the name of God? You were making tea, Stephen said, and went across the landing to get more hot water. Your mother and some visitor came out in the drawing room. She asked who was in your room. Yes, Buck Mulligan said. What did I say? I forget. You said, Stephen answered, Oh, it's only Dedalus, whose mother is beastly dead. A flush, which made him seem younger and more engaging, rose into Buck Mulligan's cheek. I suppose I did say that. I didn't mean to offend the memory of your mother. Stephen, shielding the great gaping wounds which the words had left in his heart, said very coldly, I'm not thinking about the offense to my mother. Of what then, Buck Mulligan asked. Of the offense to me, Stephen answered. Buck Mulligan swung round on his heel. Oh, an impossible person. Don't mope over it all day. I'm inconsequent. Give up your moody brooding. His head vanished, descending the stairhead. Wood shadows floated silently by through the morning peace from the stairhead seaward where he gazed. A cloud began to cover the sun slowly, overshadowing the bay in deeper green, a body of bitter waters. In a dream, silently, she had come to him, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, giving off an odor of wax and rosewood. Her breath bent over him with mute secret words, a faint odor of wetted ashes. Her glazing eyes staring out of death, her hoarse, loud breathing, rattling in horror, while all prayed on their knees. Ghoul! Chewer of corpses! No, mother! Let me be, and let me live! Ginch! Ahoy! Buck Mulligan's voice sang from within the tower. Come down now, like a good mousie. Breakfast is ready.
Our day has begun. They have disturbed Stephen's sleep the night before with a nightmare about a panther. And then they go off. Mulligan, who has saved people from drowning, decides to take a swim after getting some money from Stephen and the latch key to the tower in which they live. And then as he moves off towards his swim, Stephen, by the way, has a phobia about water. It's June 16th, his last bath was in October. So you can just imagine, and probably in, at the time of the funeral, that's what we speculated earlier today. And then Mulligan sings a little ditty in place of, Stephen is asked by Haynes about his theory of Hamlet. Begins in a tower, Hamlet begins in a tower. They're two literary works that are going to reappear throughout the book. They are, of course, the Odyssey of Homer and William Shakespeare's Hamlet. So in place of a recitation of the ideas that Stephen has developed about the identity of Hamlet, Mulligan sings his cheery Ballad of Joking Jesus. I'm the queerest fellow you ever have heard. My mother's a Jew and my father's a bird. With Stephen the joiner, Joseph the joiner, I cannot agree, so here's the disciples in cavalry. If anyone thinks I ain't divine, he'll get no free drinks when I'm making the wine, but have to drink water and wish it were plain that I make when the wine becomes water again. Goodbye now, goodbye, write down all I said, till Tom, Dick, and Harry arose from the dead. What's bred in the bone cannot fail me to fly. With Oliver's praise, goodbye now, goodbye. And then Stephen leaves and goes off to teach his day at school, and then afterwards goes to the headmaster's office to collect his pay. It's going to become very important later when it comes to the standing of drinks. So, to give us a little bit of what it's like to deal with Mr. Deasy, I'm going to introduce Wayne Allen Jones, who has a Harvard PhD in English and 2 Hopwood Awards from the University of Michigan. He's taught writing and literature courses in Chicago, Miami, and elsewhere, worked 2 decades in the computer industry, and practices clinical psychology here in Illinois. Member of Poets Club of Chicago and various other things, and he's also the author of, he has published 31 books under his own press, Fractal Edge Press, and 3 of his own, which include Stoneworks, the poems with Bernard McCabe, the A poems with Bernard McCabe, and decades of rehearsal. So with no further rehearsal and no further ado, please welcome Wayne Allen Jones.
Mr. Deasy said, "You can do me a favor, Mr. Dedalus, with some of your literary friends. I have a letter here for the press. Sit down for a moment. I just have to copy the end." He went to the desk near the window, pulled in his chair twice, and read off some words from the sheet of the drum on his typewriter. "Sit down, excuse me," he said over his shoulder. "The dictates of common sense. Just a moment." He peered from under his shaggy brows at the manuscript at his elbow, muttering, began to prod the stiff buttons of the keyboard slowly, sometimes blowing as he screwed up the drum to erase an error. Stephen seated himself noiselessly before the princely presence, Framed around the walls, images of vanished horses stood in homage, their sleek heads poised in air. Elfin riders sat them, watchful of a sign, and shouted with the shouts of vanished crowds. Full stop, Mr. Deasy bade his keys. Now then, Mr. Deasy said, rising. He came to the table, pinning together his sheets. Stephen stood up. I have put the matter in a nutshell, Mr. Deasy said. It's about the foot and mouth disease. Just look at it. Just look through it. There can be no two opinions of the matter. I don't mince words, do I? Mr. Deasy asked Stephen as Stephen read on. I want this to be printed and read, Mr. Deasy said. You will see at the next outbreak they will put an embargo on Irish cattle. And it can be cured. It is cured. My cousin, Blackwood Price, writes to me it is regularly treated and cured in Austria by cattle doctors there. They offer to come over here. I'm trying to work up influence with the department. Now I'm going to try publicity. I am surrounded by difficulties, by intrigues, backstairs influences, by... He raised his forefinger and beat the air oddly before his voice spoke. Mark my words, Mr. Dedalus, he said. England is in the hand of the Jews. In all the highest places, her finance, her press, they are the signs of the nation's decay. Wherever they gather, they eat up the nation's vital strength, and as sure as we are standing here, the Jew merchants are already at their work of destruction. Old England is dying. Dying, he said again, if not dead by now. A merchant, Stephen said, is one who buys cheap and sells dear, Jew or Gentile, is he not? They sinned against the light, Mr. Deasy said gravely. And you can see the darkness in their eyes. And that is why they are wanderers of the earth to this day. Who has not, Stephen said. What do you mean, Mr. Deasy asked. He came forward a pace and stood at the table. His underjaw fell sideways, open, uncertain. History, Stephen said, is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake. From the playfield, the boys raised a shout, a whirring whistle, go! The ways of the Creator are not our ways, Mr. Deasy said. All human history moves toward one great goal, the manifestation of God. Stephen jerked his thumb toward the window, saying, that is God. Hooray! Hey, wee! What? Mr. Deasy said. The shout in the street, Stephen answered, shrugging his shoulders. Mr. Deasy looked down and held for a while the wings of his nose tweaked between his fingers. Looking up again, he set them free. I am happier than you are, he said. We have committed many errors and many sins. A woman brought sin into the world. A woman, too, brought Parnell low. Many errors, many failures, but not the one sin. I am a struggler now at the end of my days, but I will fight for the right till the end. Stephen raised the sheets in his hand. Well, sir, he began, I foresee, Mr. Deasy said, that you will not remain here very long at this work. You were not born to be a teacher, I think. Perhaps I'm wrong. A learner, rather, Stephen said. And here, what will you learn more? Mr. Deasy shook his head. Who knows, he said, to learn one must be humble. But life is the great teacher. Stephen rustled the sheets again. As regards these, he began. Yes, Mr. Deasy said, you have 2 copies there. You can have them published at once. Telegraph, Irish Homestead. I will try, Stephen said, and let you know tomorrow. I know 2 editors slightly. That will do, Mr. Deasy said briskly. That will do. There's no time to lose. Good morning, sir, Stephen said, putting the sheets in his pocket. Thank you. Not at all, Mr. Deasy said as he searched the papers on his desk. I like to break a lance with you, old as I am. Good morning, sir, Stephen said again, bowing to his bent back. He went out by the open porch and down the gravel path under the trees, hearing the cries of voices and crack of sticks from the playfield. Mr. Dedalus, just one moment. Yes, sir, Stephen said, turning back. Mr. Deasy halted, breathing hard and swallowing his breath. I just wanted to say, he said, Ireland, they say, has the honor of being the only country that never persecuted the Jews. Do you know that? No? And do you know why? He frowned sternly in the bright air. Why, sir? Stephen asked, beginning to smile. Because she never let them in. Mr. Deasy said solemnly, a cough while of laughter leapt to his throat. Dragging after it a rattling chain of phlegm, he turned back quickly, coughing, laughing, his arms lifted, waving to the air. She never let them in, he cried again through his laughter. That's why.
It's now approximately 11:30, and Stephen, leaving the school where he works, having taught his classes for the day, and having his pen in his pocket, is walking along the Strand, which is a beach-like area where he is lost within his thoughts, and where Joyce now introduces the stream of consciousness style that he is going to carry forward from about this point on throughout the novel. Also, I should mention 2 little things that you were just told you should bear in mind. History is a nightmare from which I'm trying to escape, and God is a shout in the street, as well as other things that Mr. Deasy informed us of. So, to get us into the thoughts of Mr. Stephen Dedalus, please welcome Rory Barton, who is the preeminent Joyce scholar in his household, perhaps even on his block. He gives weekly readings of Finnegan's Wake to his very advanced daughter, now 5 months old. Mr. Barton produces an infrequent sketch comedy podcast available on iTunes called Born Rotary. Please welcome Rory Barton.
Ineluctable modality of the visible. At least that, if no more, thought through my eyes. Signatures of all things I am here to read. Sea spawn and sea rack. The nearing tide. That rusty boot. Snot green, blue silver, rust. Colored signs. Shut your eyes and see. Stephen closed his eyes to hear the boots crush, crackling, rack, and shells. You're walking through it, howsoever. I am, a stride at a time. A very short pace of time through a very short times of space. 5, 6, and that is the ineluctable modality of the audible. Open your eyes. No. Jesus, if I fell off of a cliff, that beetle's over his base fell through ineluctably. I'm getting on nicely in the dark. My ash sword hangs at my side. Tap with it, they do. Am I walking into eternity along Sandy Mount Strand? Crush. Crack. Crick. Crick. Open your eyes now. I will. One moment. Has all vanished since. If I open and am forever in the black, I will see if I can see. See now. There. All the time without you. And ever shall be, world without end. The cords of all link back, strand entwining cable of all flesh. That is why, mystic monks, will you be as gods? Gaze in your omphalos. Hello? Hinch here. Put me onto Edenville. Aleph, Alpha, not one. Spouse and helpmate of Adam, naked Eve. She had no navel. Gaze, belly without blemish, bulging big, a buckler of taut vellum, no. White heaped corn, orient and immortal, standing from everlasting to everlasting. A womb of sin. Wombed in sin darkness I was too, made, not begotten. By them, the man with my voice and my eyes, and a ghost woman with ashes on her breath. They clasped and sundered, did the coupler's will. From before the ages he willed me, and now may not will me away or ever. Is that then the divine substance wherein Father and Son are consubstantial? His pace slackened. Contrans magnificent and Jew bang tantiality. Here, my consubstantial father's voice, no less. Sir, yes, sir, no, sir. Jesus wept, and no wonder by Christ.
Now, I mentioned that this is a Cubist literary work, and so we have been from 8 o'clock in the morning in the Polemicist section of the Odyssey to approximately noon, and now we go back to 8 o'clock in the morning, and we have changed locations, as Cubists are known to do, and perspectives as well, and so now we are at number 7 Eccles Street. It's 8 o'clock in the morning once again. Please welcome Mr. Mick Greco. I have your bio here, Mick. Tell you very briefly, who's appeared in numerous productions, including 12 of these readings of James Joyce's Ulysses, Chicago Bloomsday. Also, he has appeared in Lydia Cross's House of Weird Death, Fever Dreams, View from the Bridge, Macbeth, Richard III, Three Sisters, Dan Leaks, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and any number of other productions. So, Mick Greco.
Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and foals. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roasted heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, fried hencods roes. Most of all, he liked grilled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine. Kidneys were in his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on the humpy tray. Gelid light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors, gentle summer morning everywhere made him feel a bit puckish. The coals were reddening. Another slice of bread and butter, 3, 4, right? She didn't like her plate full, right? He turned from the tray, lifted the kettle off the hob, and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there, dull and squat, its spout stuck out. Cup of tea soon? Good. Mouth dry. The cat walked stiffly around the leg of the table, the tail on high. Oh, there you are, Mr. Bloom said, turning from the fire. The cat meowed and answered, and stalked again stiffly round the leg of the table, meowing. Just how she stalks over my writing table. Scratch my head. Mr. Bloom watched curiously, lithely, kindly the lithe black form, clean to see the gloss of her sleek hide, the white button under the butt of her tail, the green flashing eyes. He bent down to her, his hands on his knees. Milk for the pussins, he said. Meow, the cat cried. They call them stupid. They understand what we say better than we understand them. She understands all she wants to. Vindictive, too. Cruel, her nature. Curious, mites never squeal. Seem to like it. Wonder what I'd look like to her. Hike to a tower? No, she can jump deep. Afraid of the chickens she is, he said mockingly. Afraid of the chook-chooks. I never saw such a stupid pussins as a pussin. The cat said loudly. She blinked out of her avid, shame-closing eyes, mirroring plaintively and long, showing him her milk-white teeth. He watched her dark eyes slits narrowing with greed till her eyes were green stones. Then he went to the dresser, took the jug Hanlon's milkman had just filled for him, poured warm bubbled milk on a saucer and set it slowly on the floor. "Grrr," she cried, running to lap. He watched the bristles shining wirily in the weak light as she tipped 3 times and licked lightly. "Wonder is it true if you clip them they can't mouse after? Why? They shine in the dark, perhaps, the tips. Or kinds of feelers in the dark, perhaps." He listened to her licking lap. "Ham and eggs? No. No good eggs with this drought. Want pure fresh water. Better a pork kidney." She lapped slower, then licking the saucer clean. "Why are their tongues so rough? To lap better, all porous holes? Nothing she can eat." He glanced around him. "No." On quietly creaky boots he went up the staircase to the hall, paused by the bedroom door. "She might like something tasty. Thin bread and butter she likes in the morning. Still, perhaps. Once in a way." He said softly in the bare hall, "You want anything for breakfast?" A sleepy, soft grunt answered. He heard a warm, heavy sigh, softer, as she turned over and the loose brass quoits of the bedstead jingled. "Must get those settled, really. Pity. All the way from Gibraltar. Forgotten any little Spanish she knew. Wonder what her father paid for it. Old style. Ah, yes, of course. Bought it at a governor's auction. Got a short knock. Hard as nails at a bargain, old Tweedy, yes, sir. At Plevna, that was. I rose from the ranks, sir, and I'm proud of it. Still, he had brains enough to make that quarter in stamps. Now that was far-seeing." Nudging the door open with his knee, he carried the tray in and set it on the chair by the bedhead. "What a time you were," she said. She set the brasses jingling as she raised herself briskly, an elbow on the pillow. He looked calmly down at her bulk and between her large soft bulbs, sloping within her nightdress like a she-goat's udder. The warmth of her couched body rose and fell, mingling with the fragrance of the tea she poured. A strip of torn envelope peeped from under the dimpled pillow. In the act of going, he stayed to straighten the bedspread. "Who was the letter from?" he asked. "Oh, Boylan," she asked. "He's bringing the program." "What are you singing?" "Love's old sweet song." Her full lips, drinking, smiled. "Would you like the window open a little?" She doubled a slice of bread into her mouth, asking, "What time is the funeral?" 11, I think, he answered. "I didn't see the paper." Following the pointing of her finger, he took up a leg of her soiled drawers from the bread. "No?" "No, that book. It must have fell down," she said. "I put a mark in it. There's a word I wanted to ask you." She swallowed a draught of tea from her cup held by a knot handle, and, having wiped her fingertips smartly on the blanket, began to search the text with the hairpin till she reached the word. "Here," she said. "What does that mean?" He leaned forward and read near her polished thumbnail. "Metempsychosis?" "Yes." "Metempsychosis," he said, frowning. "It's Greek, from the Greek. That means the transmigration of souls." "Oh, rocks," she said. "Tell us in plain words." He smiled, glancing askance at her mocking eyes, the same young eyes. He turned over the smudged pages. "Ruby, the pride of the ring." "Hello, illustration. Fierce Italian with carriage whip. Must be Ruby, pride of the... on the floor naked." "Metempsychosis, that we live after death. Our souls, that a man's soul, after he dies. Dignam's soul." "Did you finish it?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "There's nothing smutty in it. Is she in love with the first fellow all the time?" "Never read it. Do you want another?" "Yes. Get another of Paul de Kock's. Nice name he has. She poured more tea into her cup, watching it flow sideways. Some people believe, he said, that we go on living in another body after death, that we lived before. They call it reincarnation, that we all lived before on the earth thousands of years ago, or some other planet. They say we have forgotten it. Some say they remember their past lives. The sluggish cream wound curdling spirals throughout her teeth. Better reminder of the word, metempsychosis. An example would be better. An example. Metempsychosis, he said, is what the ancient Greeks called it. They used to believe you could be changed into an animal or a tree, for instance. Her spoon ceased to stir up the sugar. She gazed straight before her, inhaling through her arched nostrils. There's a smell of burn, she said. Did you leave anything on the fire? The kidney!
Mr. Bloom continues with his day. He goes out to the outhouse, to the privy. And this is a passage that even Ezra Pound found a little bit objectionable. And after leaving the outhouse, he also brings from home a talisman, a potato, which will appear many times throughout the book, and stops at an apothecary to get some lemon soap, because he's going to be stopping in the bathhouse a little bit later and watching himself float through the water like a blossoming flower. But that notwithstanding, he also stops at the post office in order to pick up a letter because he's engaged in a synonymous relationship with a certain typist named Martha Clifford. And to join me as Martha will be Adriana Galvin, who is a multi-genre writer with a passion for storytelling that began when she was listening to her grandmother tell stories of growing up in northern Mexico and later immigrating to northwest Indiana. She received her BA in fiction at Columbia College, and she is currently working on a novel called In a Distant Dream. Please welcome Adriana. He turned into Cumberland Street and, going on some paces, halted in the lead of the station wall. No one. He opened the letter. A flower. I think it's a yellow flower with flattened petals. Not annoyed then. What does she say?
Dear Henry, I got your last letter to me, and I thank you very much for it. I'm sorry you did not like my last letter. Why did you enclose the stamps? I am awfully angry with you. I do wish I could punish you for that. I called you a naughty boy because I do not like the other word. Please tell me, what is the real meaning of that word? Are you not happy in your home, you poor little naughty boy? I do wish I could do something for you. Please tell me what you think of poor me. I often think of the beautiful name you have, dear Henry. When will we meet? I think of you so often you have no idea. I have never felt myself so much drawn to a man as you. I feel so bad about. Please write me a long letter and tell me more. Remember, if you do not, I will punish you. So now you know what I will do to you, you naughty boy, if you do not write. Oh, how I long to meet you. Henry dear, do not deny my request before my patience are exhausted. Then I will tell you all. Goodbye now, naughty darling. I have such a bad headache today, and I write by return to your longing. Martha. P.S. Do tell me what kind of perfume does your wife use? I want to know.
He tore the flower gravely from his pinhole, smelt its almost no smell, and placed it in his heart pocket. Language of flowers, no roses without thorns. Today is at a church, a Catholic church, with a lot of keeping for him. But nonetheless, he stops in to hear what he thinks will be a musical performance. The organist here is someone who he's heard of and wants to hear. And so, our composer in residence for these Bloomsday at Chicago is Mr. Clayton. Clay is, as I said, a composer, a musician, also a colleague of mine at Roosevelt University. So please welcome Mr. Clayton Horvath.
He had reached the open back door of All Hallows. Stepping into the porch, he doffed his hat. Same notice on the door. Sermon by the very Reverend John Conmay, S.J. on St. Peter Clever and with the African Mission. Save China's millions. I wonder how they explain it to the heathen Chinese. Prefer an ounce of opium. Rank heresy for them. Buddha, their god, lying on his side in the museum. Taking it easy with a hand under his cheek, joss sticks burning. Not like Ecce Homo. Crown of thorns and a cross. Clever idea, St. Patrick the Shamrock. Chopsticks. The smell, cold smell of sacred stone called him. He trod the worn steps, pushed the swing door, and entered softly. Something going on. Pretty so empty. Nice discreet place to be next some girl. That woman at midnight mass, seventh heaven. Women knelt in the benches. The priest went along by them, murmuring. He stopped at each one, took out a communion wafer, shook a drop or two, laid water off of it, and put it neatly into her mouth. Her hat and head sank. Then the next one, a small old woman. The priest bent down to put it into her mouth, murmuring all the time. Latin, the next one. Shut your eyes and open your mouth. What? Corpus, body, corpse. Good idea, the Latin stupefies them first. Justice for the dying. They don't seem to chew it, only swallow it down. Rum idea, eating bits of a corpse. Why, the cannibals cotton to it. He stood aside watching, then approached a bench and seated himself in its corner, nursing his hat and newspaper. Look at them. I bet it makes them feel happy. Lollipop, it does. Yes, bread of the angels, it's called. Here's a big idea behind it. Kind of kingdom of God is within you feel, first communicants, then feel all like one happy family party, same in the theater, all in the same swing. I'm sure of that. Not so lonely. Thing is, if you really believe in it, blind faith, safe in the arms of kingdom come, lulls the pain. He saw the priest stow the communion cup away and kneel an instant before it. Letters on his back, INRI? No, IHS. Molly told me one time, I asked her, I have sinned, or no, I have suffered. That's it. And the other one? Iron nails ran in. The priest is rinsing out the chalice. He tossed off the dregs smartly. Wine makes it more aristocratic than, for example, if you drink Guinness or some temperance beverage. Quite perfectly right. That is, Mr. Bloom looked back towards the choir. Not going to be any music. Hey, who is the organ here, I wonder? Old Glenn, he knew how to make the instrument talk with a bravado. 50 pounds a year, they say he had at Gardner Street. Father Bernard Vaughan, sermon first. Christ or Pilate? Christ, but don't keep us all night over about it. Music, they wanted. You could hear a pin drop. Qui est home. Some of that old sacred music is splendid. Mozart's 12th Mass. The Gloria in that. Those old popes are keen on